Welcome to the first Manaaki live session for Level 3. I'm Stephen McIver, and today is a big day for at least 400,000 workers getting themselves back into the workforce. But it's also a day when business owners and business leaders start to think, how are we now going to get back into the grind? How are we going to make our business sustainable and more successful and keep this economy growing and nurturing as we get out of this level and potentially then in a couple of weeks, cross your fingers, go into level 2. So today we're talking about this, the brain, the mind, resilience. And the perfect person to talk to this is a man by the name of Sven Hansen, who is the owner and creator of the Resilience Institute. A medical doctor, been in the South African Army for a little while, but now he joins us right now. Happy day one of level 3, Sven.
And you, Stephen, and good to take. Particularly good day for me because, you know, us water babies have been allowed back on the beach.
So what are you, stand-up paddleboarder or a canoeist?
A surf ski for me.
Surf. I could never master the surf ski. The best thing I've done in the water is done a bit of ocean swimming, and that was tough enough as it was. Resilience. What's your definition of resilience?
Keeping it simple, we look at 4 perspectives. First, can you bounce? Mm-hmm. Second, can you continue to grow? And obviously, as a small business owner, that's key. And that's growing your physical well-being, your emotional capabilities, emotional intelligence. It's about growing your mind, your thinking, your capacity to handle strategy. Third, connection. And that's kind of the key. So I think as we go into phase 3 and 2, we're going to really have to double down on reconnecting with our customers, reconnecting with our teams, reconnecting with our suppliers. Mm-hmm. And the fourth part of resilience is what we call flow. And that's the ability to put, you know, your top skills into action in a meaningful challenge. So bounce, grow, connect, flow.
I'll talk about bounce in just a moment because I want to ask this question. Because for 4 weeks, business and everybody's been feeling there's adversity going on. Does adversity breed natural resilience?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what we probably, if we just sort of step back and think about being human, we've always had adversity. So humans, by the very fact that we're here today, have gone through endless and sometimes very strenuous adversities. So the basic capability of resilience is built deeply into our genome, into our culture, and into our behaviors. So absolutely, and there's something we do worry about with, you know, the young generation, what I call sort of iGen or Gen Z, is that maybe we've taken away too much adversity. We've made it too easy. We've made the word physically safe, emotionally safe, and even safe from uncomfortable ideas. As a consequence, some people believe that the resilience of younger people could be challenged.
Well, I suppose if we're parents and we've been through adversity ourselves, we tend to want to cocoon our children from having to go through that. And I think that is just purely a natural byproduct, yeah?
Yes, it is. However, if you look at many species, the challenge they give their offspring is pretty severe. You know, if you think about a leopard mother teaching a baby leopard to hunt, it's a grueling training program. And if you think about most of our societies as early humans, we always had our rites of passage. And those were adversities set up by the culture, by the wisdom elders to say, you know, this is your time to see how strong you are, to grow, to develop your adult abilities.
Let's talk about, and there's so much to talk about. I know you've got 60 parts to your resilience spiral. I had a look at it on the website, very revealing, but also in essence very simple too. It basically goes from bad to good, and you go through things. But it reminded me of it like a double helix, the DNA helix, and I'm wondering whether that had anything to do with it.
It's
bounce.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm onto it. Right, that's good. Good start. The bounce. Did you take that the idea for businesses and individuals and leaders to understand to bounce back?
You know, I think all of us started with the words bounce back, and that goes back to some studies in why 60, 70 years ago. We have deliberately avoided the term bounce back because the truth is every single one of us going through the challenges of now is growing in some ways. We will get through this and we'll come out of it stronger and wiser. So, if you wanted to be technically correct, you could say when we engage with adversity, we actually bounce forward. We grow,
Okay, so,
we learn, we become better.
Okay, so let's talk about bounce, because how important is let's put ourselves in the position of being, okay, just a restaurant, right? Pizza. I love using the pizza restaurant analogy, right? They're going to try and bounce back today and do takeaways and send outs and the whole 9 yards. How important is it for the owner to understand first of all, and then accept that there could be multiple bounces?
Yeah, I think this is what we're all going to have to deal with. I mean, there are a few parts to your question there. I think the first is, and the really important one is the acknowledging personally. That's where the healing begins. So you mentioned this idea of up and down. That's what bounce is all about. It is absolutely normal for some parts of our life to feel like we're really pushed down. We feel confused, overloaded, we start to withdraw, don't really take care of ourselves, we feel distressed, we maybe even get depressed. Normal. Welcome to human life. If a leader can notice that in themselves, I think you can say you're 50-50 on your way to recovery. So the first challenge for a leader is to be able to look in the mirror and accept it, acknowledge it. Once you acknowledge it, you'll find the movement back up happens very, very naturally. So for sure, some of us might need help. We need a coach. Groups like Manaaki. I mean, it's so important to have someone you can pick up a call to and say, hey, look, I'm feeling like this. What do I need to do? So at those lower levels, you need help. But really what I think is so key for most leaders today, if you want to bounce yourself, you've got to start taking care of your daily practice. Slow your breathing down, sleep really well, take time to exercise every single day, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure you press against the fear, the sadness, the anger. Look for more skillful emotions. And finally, this concept of you cannot overthink in a fluid situation like this. We often think we're going to think our way out of this. Actually, you're better off not to think too much. Stay very, very present.
So this is sort of a two-part question again for you to deal with, because for me, it tells me that you're talking about self-awareness, but also discipline. But the question that follows that is sustaining that.
Indeed.
How?
Well, I think this is obviously a shocking period, and let's acknowledge the suffering many have gone through. But from the other side, isn't this also the perfect time to take time to sleep? Go to bed early, get out with your family, have a walk in the morning, perhaps consider your relaxation practice. I think in many ways we've been given a gift. And I really would like to urge anyone in small business to take this time just to think about those daily practices. Yes, they're a discipline, but you know what? As you start to get used to the rhythm, it becomes very easy. It's no more than cleaning your teeth. You start looking forward to that stretch. You start looking forward to the exercise. You check your thing and say, hey, I'm going to stop the screens. I'm going to get ready for bed. So I think, what a good time for all of us to take stock. The world has slowed down a little bit, and think about what are those non-negotiables that would make you a better version of yourself.
Easy for you and I to sit here and talk about it. Harder for people who are under stress, thinking that they have to keep employees in jobs, their business going, worrying about businesses going to the wall. What subtle tips, do you have for someone in that position to maintain those disciplines?
I think these days it's we call them non-negotiables. And to have a bare minimum. So you say, look, I'm always going to be in bed by X. I'm always going to be up by Y. And you hold yourself to those little daily disciplines. And they don't need to be much. You don't have to go and suffer for 2 hours on the road bike. You can just go out with your partner and take a 15-minute walk at dawn. Tick. So make it easy, not too difficult, but do something.
Do we come back to the position of maybe going back to a more modern version of keeping a diary, just to remind yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And, many people, and, I'm using Fitbit at the moment, but you've got Apple Watch. They all have these little disciplines locked into them. If you think about a leader, it's really important for your business, your family, and the people you employ that you're in a good state. Surely it's not too much to at least get people to ask the question, what do I need to do to be the better version of myself that can lead this business through the tricky time?
So herein lies the one key word, accountability. If you are accountable to that routine, that makes you the better you, does it not?
Absolutely. And the trick is just to get started. To get started with humility, to realize you'll fall off the boat, but kick it going again. Make it happen on a regular basis.
Having worked in high performance, Sven, how important do you put, or how great an onus do you put on the fact of physical well-being? You've mentioned it now, but there are certain parts to physical well-being, and does that roll into mental well-being?
Yeah, the two are absolutely inextricable. If we try and put it very simply in the terms you said, I think that idea of bounce and your daily practice are what I call hygiene factors. If you want to be a better version of yourself, if you want your kids to thrive, if you want your employees to be productive, you take care of that. And that includes mental health. It includes basic well-being. But they're only foundations. Because at the end of the day, when we're working with our staff, working with customers, it's all about how we feel and how we think and how we share that with other people. So the actual game of resilience is really in the heart and the head. The problem, of course, for us is, let's say, a simple one, which I think we can all understand. If you have a poor night's sleep, your emotion control and your thinking skills are severely disabled. If you've been out and had some exercise today, you're so much more happy, you're so much more energetic, you'll be positive, your posture will be better. It's so much easier for people to hear you, follow you, believe you, and ultimately that's all about trust. So, of course the physical side is important, but I would see it just as a foundation to support our emotional world and to support our minds. And I think this is an important little idea. You think about the struggles many people are having with mental health today. It is kind of a pandemic of our time. If we were just to sleep better, if we were just to be more conscious of breathing slower, we could have a huge impact on the incidence and the suffering caused by mental health issues.
I was looking at one of your case studies online, and it was interesting to look at the numbers that have been produced and the positive numbers from companies taking your workshops. But one line stood out above them all: master the stress.
Yeah. So in today's world, it's kind of the key to the palace. And you're going to think of it really, really easily if we just simplify it right down to each leader. You want enough pressure to be awake and alert and engaged, but not so much pressure that you falter. So, when I think about leaders I'm talking to over the last few weeks, there are three signals that I think are really key. And this, in a way, is the emotional world. The first is the freeze response. There are some leaders who say, oh my gosh, it's over. Yeah. They don't make decisions. They're not acting in the interest of their company or their employees or staff or suppliers and customers. That freeze response, in a way, is an acute attack of sadness. You just clam up. It's biological. The second dangerous one is anger. There are some people saying, oh, you should open up, and you see a lot of this happening in the US at the moment. Yeah. Got to open up business, open up the States. And people get very frustrated. And that anger causes the fight reaction. Really dangerous for a leader. And the third one is, of course, the flight or fear reaction. So, that kind of just, when you talk about stress, distress, or good stress, bad stress, pay attention to that. Am I feeling anxious? All right, it's gone too far. Am I feeling sad? Gone too far. Am I feeling angry? Gone too far. So using the wonderful signals that our body gives us, fear, sadness, anger, to say, actually, I need to come back. So I need to, we use a simple term, name it. I'm angry.
Yeah.
Tame it. Take a moment, walk outside, enjoy the birds, and then reframe it. So, for example, when we're angry, the way to get back to your best, to master the pressure, is to find kindness. When you're sad, it's to find a bit of gratitude, a bit of appreciation, just a sense of, okay, this is tough as, but I'm going to learn here. This is going to be interesting. We will find a better way through this. That's an appreciation. The counter, the power of that counter of working against the negative emotion towards the positive is the key. And this is what the athletes, they walk that knife edges. You would know from your work. The great athletes can push themselves right up to that edge. Remember they talk about in the All Blacks, red, blue, decide, do. All right. Wow. So when you go into anger, sad, or fear, you've gone red. So you've got to push back to blue, where you can manage your behaviors, you can engage your mind, you can be flexible, adaptive.
And be patient too. So I had a question, how do you master the stress? Well, you were speaking at the same time. So name it, tame it, and reframe it. I've got some comments I just thought you might be interested to hear. Jared says, it's awesome using those feelings of sad and anger to know if it's too much stress. Jerome says, self-regulation is the key. Kate says, that's awesome, making the stress work for you, which is, even at the outset, is easier said than done. But I'd just love to know this one here. I've got a question for you from Amanda. She says, any advice for working mums who are trying to cope with kids and elderly parents at work? Combined with menopausal systems, which means sleep is not achievable, I would love to find the resilience and willpower to prioritize myself. But wow, it's hard. Doc, what do I do?
Yeah. And that's choosing the most difficult one. And so many of us in our age group are dealing with the parents, the kids, and stretched. Step one, you got to have some self-compassion. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel frightened. We even heard, good leaders around the world saying this. And being kind to yourself is the beginning of the solution. We think about many of us who really end up strung out like that. Often our expectations of ourselves are very high, and we can be quite self-critical and give ourselves a hard time. So step one in answering Amanda's question is be gentle. Acknowledge where you're at, acknowledge it's difficult, and not try and deny it. So it's a really important thing with the emotions. You don't want to push them away and lock them down. You want to welcome them and say, oh, that's interesting. All right, so how can I work with this in a more skillful way? So it's not denial, it's full acceptance, and then use them. But I think for Amanda, the thing is to realize when you're dealing with so many responsibilities, and I'm sure for many business owners exactly the same, you've got to be that better version of yourself. That is the primary duty of leadership, is that you care enough about those you look after, whether they be parents and kids, or whether they be your staff or your customers, to care enough to want to say, you know what, I need a good sleep tonight. I'm going to get up and do a few stretches. So you use the love that gets you into that position of leadership or parenting to know that you can only be the best version of yourself if you do something, and everyone else needs you to do it. I think that's one sleight of hand I recommend.
Yeah. Do you feel that some leaders and business owners will have to turn themselves inside out and maybe be a little selfish to understand this and then move forward? So they're going to have to put themselves sort of at odds with others.
Yes, please. I think there is a measure of toughness in this. You know, and I think we probably all experience this in our families at some point. I certainly remember it when the kids were young and we were both working, and you really just wondered, how were you going to keep this all together? When we took care of ourselves and said to others, you know what, I can't help you here, that was the beginning of that positive bounce forward.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think there's a really key element you bring out there. You've got to know how to protect yourself. And that's not something that business is encouraged very much. I think it's really important. And as we go into the new world that emerges out of this current drama, I think that'd be a great message. You know, how are you going to be strong enough to take care of yourself so that you can be that better person?
It almost comes back to the old saying of, I need some space. You've got to give yourself some space, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be selfish enough to do that.
And you know, it's got to be constructive space. That's the only thing I add, right? It's really easy to opt out into destructive space and have a few more glasses of wine. There's time for that. But, you know, when you really are feeling strung out, it's got to be constructive space.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Amanda has responded and said, thanks. I certainly have days where I wallow, quote unquote, which balances out the days of high motivation. So I'm thinking that your name it, tame it, reframe it is probably perfect for Amanda right now because everything's just crowding in on her.
Yeah. But you know, the key in what Amanda's saying there is that she's wallowing some days and then she's coming out. And that, I think, goes back to what you said right at the beginning. We got to get ready to bounce many times. There may be a few more shocks to the system. So I think for everyone, for every leader, just get used to the idea you will have setbacks, you'll grow out of them, and then another one might come and you're going to have to grow out of that again. And, you know, the last thing I want to come back to, Stephen, you mentioned, you know, why leaders should do this. Take care of your staff. Many of your staff will be in that downward spiral, and they need a wise and caring leader to keep an eye on them. And if you're in a good state, you can do that. If you're in a bad state yourself, it's really hard to take care of your staff.
Yeah, because I noticed on your stress diagram, there's organizational and there's individual. So the fact that you're a leader, I would suggest that's potentially organizational, but it also swings into the individual as well. How does and you said about just a minute ago about how the leader should look after their staff, but how do they deliver that message in a way that the staff suddenly realize that the leader, their business owner, their boss is in control?
Nice. I think the step one, a measure of self-disclosure, you know, not to try and be a hero. Truth is, we've all taken a few thumps. To be able as a leader to share that with your staff without losing it. All right. So to be honest and say, look, I've struggled with that. Ability to be humble is a great start, because people will hear you, you get the heart connection, and then I think you earn the permission, which is the real key step for a leader, to actually ask your people how they are. So take that very practically. One of the things we're recommending for every leader, you should, if you can, check in with every member in your team or your direct reports every day, and make sure you start that check-in with a very genuine, Stephen, how are you traveling? And, you know, and if someone's
listening,
distracting.
The biggest problem for a lot of people and a lot of those that are leading, don't listen. Play the card, but don't actually listen.
Yeah. And maybe even guide them, you know, so if let's say they're avoiding feelings, you know, to gently and respectfully just say, gosh, and how are you feeling about that? And tell me what you're thinking would be. So as you show to your people that you're interested in their physical, emotional, and mental well-being, I think you've built a very strong bond. You've shown you're a good human being. But secondly, you've actually given that person a lot of support, because they've been able to express it, name it. Maybe you can gently help them tame it, and maybe even reframe it. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I work in an industry where there is literally zero feedback. And this is quite eye-opening. And I would be hoping that some of those in the industry that I work in take a look at this, because we're all human and we all like, dare I say, a little bit of attention. Some say people like me have too much attention, but it's not the same, right? And I think we have to be very mindful that everybody is going through this. And I find it, because this leads to me, and I think it's all tied in now, empathy and engagement appears a lot in your philosophy. Do you want to expand on the empathy part, or have we already touched on that, and the engagement by being the leader and engaging with the staff?
I think we've answered it, but if I were to capture it in a little bit of a phrase, if you show you're interested in someone's physical, emotional, mental well-being, you've practiced outstanding empathy. That's all empathy is to be curious in a caring way. Now, one of the dangers, and this is, when we get stretched out for leaders, is sometimes you're caring for too many people and you're caring too much, and that can deplete you. So the only caution in the empathy word is care and stay strong in yourself. So let's say, for example, we deal with some really bad news. You tell me about something awful that's happened. I'm going to feel that, and I'm going to feel a lot of your pain. Now, if I go from one meeting to another, carrying one load of drama after another, you can actually leak into sympathy where you're taking too much care. And I think that's something leaders will just have to keep a little watch on, is to care and show the empathy, but not to take it all on board.
Is this part of also being a business owner and leader, of going, for want of an easier way to frame it, not being too friendly with your staff, knowing that there are boundaries?
Yeah, it's a fine line, isn't it? I mean, I think, just to listen to the way you framed that is a lesson for any leader, indeed.
I suppose I've had a little text in here, and it says, and it's quite simple, and it probably says exactly what you're talking about. When they feel the love, they return the love. #fact.
Absolutely.
Flexibility is part of your MO. Where does the flexibility come in after going through all of this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as you practice these things, let's say, for example, I notice anger rising, and I think, that anger's probably not going anywhere helpful. Name it, tame it, practice a bit of caring. That's flexibility. But trust me, the first time you do that, it's devilishly difficult. You are holding on to that anger, potentially for weeks. So the key with flexibility is, just as the athletes have to train this over and over again, the beauty of taking some of these simple practices, try them at home, carefully, respectfully, slowly work them into the business. And then you find that flexibility comes so much more easily. Instead of a meeting become a conflict, people laugh. They tell a joke, say, gosh, Sven, you had a rough night, didn't you? And, we become humans and we become agile. The danger in business is you get fixed, and it's often those negative emotions that make us fixed. But I think that idea of practice, if you say, okay, I'm going to try and be a little more kind and not shout at people, you're going to have to work at it very deliberately, maybe using the journal you recommended or the diary, so that you drill the skill to the point that it's easy to use.
Here's a final question for you. What I've learned over the past half hour is this is a very emotional way of improving leadership. Very emotional, very making leaders self-aware. Anecdotally, do male leaders struggle with this more so than female leaders? Because I'm getting some comments, and I think it's a valid question.
Well, there's quite a bit of research done on this. In general, that emotional intelligence capability is the same in male, female. In some of the studies, it shows that men tend to be better at self-control or impulse control, whereas women tend to be better at empathy. But the truth is, and the beauty of this is, no matter where you are on that journey of growing your emotional intelligence, it's like all of resilience, it's a fully learnable skill. So even if your empathy isn't that hot, care about the person, physical well-being, body, heart, mind, you will grow your empathy. You can become maybe not the world expert, but you can certainly become capable and competent.
I think there's two things that I've learned, and I hope people that are watching this Manaaki Live on Facebook have learned as well. How to master the stress, to name it, tame it. I thought you were going to say shame it, but no,
Yeah.
but in a funny way, it was reframe it,
Yeah.
and body, heart, and mind. And don't overthink it, because you get nowhere by overthinking, correct?
Absolutely. The quieter your mind, the happier you will be, and the more successful you'll be. Be present for the moment.
I have a lot of work to do.
Don't we all? It's a life journey.
Sven Hansen from the Resilience Institute. If people want to get in touch with you, if there are businesses watching this saying, this is the guy and the organization, a global organization that we need, how do they get in touch with you?
So recommend people just pop onto our website, resilienceI.com, or you can just search Resilience Institute. It's all there. And there are self-help tools. There's lots of free material. And if you're a business and you're looking for different solutions, there's some case studies as you shared.
You're a fine man and a gentleman, and thank you for such, what someone has said, Jada has said, quite timely advice. Be safe, my friend.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks all. Well done, Manaaki.
Thank you, Sven Hansen, the co-founder and leader of the Resilience Institute. And that completes the first Manaaki Live session on Facebook for the first day of Level 3. Trust you're okay. Be patient if you want to go out. And please, most importantly, if you're going to go out and get your takeaways that you've been hanging out for, shop local, look after New Zealand, and make sure you do the right thing. And most importantly, stay safe. But just to reiterate what Sven has said, if you want to master that stress, name it, tame it, and reframe it, and don't overthink it. I'll be back tomorrow with another Manaaki Live session. I'm Stephen McIver. Stay safe, everybody.